Alright, it was a sad Independence Day for Nigeria in 2010. Two car bombs went off, killing 12 persons and injuring many others as crowds gathered to celebrate the Nigeria's Golden Jubilee anniversary. Indeed. Well, last month, a South African court upheld a 24-year prison sentence for Henry Okah, who was jailed in 2013 for masterminding a number of terror attacks. The Federal High Court in Abuja has now found his brother, Charles Okah, and Obi Nwabweze guilty of the October 1st, 2010 bombing in Abuja and the Warri bombing on March the 15th, same year. Okah has been sentenced to life imprisonment. The presiding judge, Justice Gabriel Kolawole, said the second defendant, Obi Nwabweze, made himself available to run illegal errands for Henry Okah, who provided the funds for the purchase of two cars used in the Warri blast. Now, Charles Okah was also indicted for providing the money used for the Independence Day bomb blast in Abuja. Edmond Ebeware, a third defendant, had earlier been convicted to life imprisonment for his role in the 2010 Abuja bomb blast. All right, we have with us in the studio a lecturer from the Nasarawa State University, Chukwuemeka Eze. Good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Okay, first off, what is your immediate reaction to the judgment? You think it will give succor really to maybe the victims and the families of those affected?
My immediate reaction is that justice has been served. This is a trial that the prosecution presented 17 witnesses and the defense 7 witnesses, and took about 7 years to come. So the fact is that all the parties have been heard, and that incident has not been swept under the carpet, because there is a way the human mind works. When things of that nature happens and the person has not shown remorse, people will be angling for justice. So once justice is done, it will ameliorate the pain. But if justice is not done, it will exacerbate the pain. So I think justice has been served.
All right. Justice has been served even though after about 7-8 years. Now, putting this together with the South African judicial system, the elder brother Henry Okah was sentenced years ago and then upheld afterwards, and Charles Okah has been sentenced much more later on. Now, these are two persons in the same incident on the same day, in the same incident as the case may be, but South Africa, even far away, was able to, dispense justice with, and it took Nigeria so much to do the same thing.
South Africa is far ahead of Nigeria in all ramifications, in democracy, in justice dispensation, in terms of, in everything, because the system works in an integrated manner. And the South African system has gone far ahead of us. South Africa is between Africa and Europe, and has a lot it has gained from Europe and integrated into its system. Nigeria is yet to get there, but we are on the move. Recall that the G20, Nigeria is not a member of the G20, but South Africa is a member of the G20. So even economically, the way Zuma has been shoved off, nobody can do it in this country. The way people speak in parliament in South Africa, you cannot do that in this country and walk the streets free. Nobody has been killed for speaking. It's been attacked by thugs. You see the firebrand Julius Malema and others.
Of the EFF.
Yes, even women backing, even pointing at the president and saying, let the heavens fall. But nothing happens to them. We are yet to get to that level. I think we are closer to Thomas Hobbes' description of the society than South Africa. Okay. Not that we are in that state, but we are closer to it than South Africa.
And it seems that the focus should be really on the judicial system in Nigeria. With this judgment, we just talked about the late
judgment, though you have already established that justice has not been denied. But then we look at other high-profile cases in the country and how they always drag for years. Sometimes the victims might have died even before justice would be served. So what should be the focus really for government, for the judicial system to be stronger so that it can expedite judgment?
I think it cannot be taken in isolation from every other thing happening in this country. I mean the judicial system. It cannot be quarantined to perform optimally while other areas are dragging. So we need to understand that, like the body, every part of the body has a role to play. If something happens to one part of the body, it will have an impact, at least sensationally, to another part. So if the power sector is not performing and you don't have light in courts, how will the judges work? So the judiciary cannot on its own perform if other supportive areas are not performing. Okay, you have a court in a highbrow area and the registrars, the court clerks, the security men, they all stay 10 kilometers away because they cannot fund getting accommodation around the court premises. And heavy traffic, you don't have multimodal transport system. You have only road. No, the water transport has not been developed. The train system undeveloped. Then you expect them to be at work. Some people get to work 11 a.m. So how far can they help the judge? And the judge will be waiting for them. At the end of the day, you want the judicial system to work perfectly while other systems are not working. It is a mirage. It will not work.
But whose table does it really rest? Now, the point there is, we have, like you have identified, Nigeria is not there yet. Everyone knows. It's public knowledge. Everyone knows we're not there yet. But whether we're taking the right steps to getting there is another thing. But the judiciary, when you bring lawyers here, they said, yeah, we're not there yet, but we're trying. And whether it is in the hands or within the purview of the judiciary to, purge itself, or it is in the hands of the presidency or the government, let me say, the government of Nigeria to say, okay, fine. Nigerian judiciary, we have to take this step or step it up to this level, as the case may be. Whose table does this really lie in ensuring that we get there, like you put it?
Thank you for putting the judiciary on trial. But I want to say this categorically without fear of favor, that it is only in the judiciary that you can get impartial determination of affairs in this country. It is only in that place you can get men of honor that will look at something impartially and will be afraid only of God without being afraid of man. If you go to the executive, you must pander to the whims and caprices of the president. If you go to the legislature, you may not want to walk outside the line so that your colleagues will not throw chairs at you. But that doesn't happen in the judiciary.
Well, some judges were accused of collecting money, accusation, and then one had to be dismissed. One had to be dismissed for even lying about it.
Doesn't matter, but you check the percentage.
Meaning they are humans too.
Now you check the percentage. After all, Satan rebelled in heaven and was chased down biblically. So there will always be rebels, and out of every 12, there will be Judas. So you will not use the few examples to engage in the fallacy of generalization. So, but I put it, I want you to appreciate that it is only in the judiciary that we look at a poor man and give him justice without being afraid. But let me also add that we practice presidential system of government and the buck stops on the president's table. So if you are looking for where to pinpoint the fault, just go to the president's table. That is it. You don't need to look far and wide. Just go to that is where the buck stops.
Okay, yeah, and with the problem of Boko Haram now, which of course we heard many times that had been defeated, but then it kept coming back, and now again it's gradually attacking some areas in the northeast again. And there have been calls that there has to be prosecution. Some have been forgiven. They are being put through a de-radicalization program, though some have been charged to court. With this really, and then with the vast number of Boko Haram members maybe arrested in the past, is it about getting a special court, as is the trend now for maybe corruption cases and all that maybe you have a special court for terrorism cases too, so that it can get full attention?
With due respect, you have moved this matter to Boko Haram. I thought we had discussed Okah.
Yeah, it's just talking about generally.
No, it has to do with special
bombings, special courts.
Yes, because one of the offenses for which, or counts for which Okah has been convicted is terrorist financing. Good. Whether there should be special cause for this, it may not make enough difference except you get the other supportive areas of development right. If you don't get them right, you can open as many, they will be clogged. But basically, I think we should, even if we want to have special, it should be a constitutional court. There are so many constitutional issues that people want to trash out. And for you to go to a court to spend 10 years just because you want a section or subsection of the Constitution to be interpreted, that wouldn't be good enough. So, but for criminal trials to go and get a special court for terrorists, that means you have come to appreciate that terrorism is one of the fundamental crimes that not only operating now, but will be here for a very long time. So what happens by the time we eventually defeat terrorists, and terrorism is no longer a challenge to Nigeria, what will happen to the special courts? Because to create them, you might need to amend the Constitution. So will you turn back to re-amend the Constitution? So I don't subscribe to establishing special courts just for that. But if you want to lump them perhaps into special courts for corruption, because corruption is prevailing and it will remain with us as long as this country remains. So yes,
don't say that.
No, the Constitution has said so, that in section 15, subsection 5, that we should drive policies against corruption. So if the Constitution has identified the problem, you are not saying I shouldn't say so. I've identified. I'm only speaking in line with
by men.
No. If the Constitution identifies a problem and say policies of government should be done in such a way to avoid it, now I'm following suit. Then you are stopping me. Will you stop the Constitution? And we are a signatory to the United Nations Convention against corruption. So if we are a signatory to a convention, a treaty, then why is it because I've said the obvious? So basically, it is courts for corruption cases, because even those days we read about Indian incorruptible judge, Agbalowo Mary or somebody like that. I think it's a fiction, but it depicts that corruption had always been here with us. And we look at our ranking in the Corruption Perception Index. So basically, speaking in terms of funding of terrorism, the Terrorism Prevention Act, we have a law on that one. And with the passage of the bill on NFIU, detaching it from EFCC, it will be easier for the Egmont Group to cooperate with us, and we will have more information in terms of illicit financial flows, and it will be easy to monitor who and who is funding terrorism. We need to give kudos to the judiciary for doing this, because if even EFCC, for getting an experienced lawyer, Alexis Zion, did a very good job there, and was consistent and courageous for about 8 years. And Honorable Justice Kolawole was able to, the judgment was read for about 6 hours. So it's something to give kudos to the judiciary. Most times we only see the flip side, but the judiciary has held this country firm. It has done a lot, because if it has done as bad as some critics say, you won't be able to sit in this studio if the judiciary. So Even the rich, they bow. People who live, they stay in power. They say the judiciary, say all manner of things. When they leave power and they are being tormented, they quickly run back to the judiciary.
But in the same way, the judiciary certainly is the hope of the common man, like they say, and doesn't take sides when it's you know, prosecuting. But the point there is, when it comes to cases, the one we Nigerians or people refer to low-profile and high-profile cases, the judiciary seems to be very proactive and then decisive and then work with time within a very short period of time than when it has to do with high-profile cases.
My personal opinion is that you have been to weddings. You see some people sitting at the high table and some people sitting beyond the high table. Everybody cooperates for things to work out and they leave without people claiming they are being cheated. Now, Aristotle, though many people are not comfortable with that definition, that justice is treating equals equally and unequals unequally. You cannot treat Dangote like his driver. That is reality. You cannot be treated as your boss. In any case, everybody ought to be equal before the law. But theoretically, that's the position. In practice, we have discovered in our own client that we have the rich and the poor. And the judiciary will not act in vacuum. The people in the judiciary are not from the moon. They are like you and me. So if the society abolishes this dichotomy, the judiciary will quickly kill him. But as long as the society continues with this dichotomy, begin to call some human beings Olorioko and call some human beings Mekuno, then you expect these things not to filter into the judiciary. It's not possible. So basically, the society, beginning from even the assemblies, if all these National Assembly, houses of assembly do what they are supposed to do, they are supposed to try as much as possible to bridge the gap. But the gap is widening, and the reality on the ground, which the judiciary cannot shut its eyes to. If it does, it will mean it is writing its own law. Remember, the judiciary is there to interpret the laws as made by the National Assembly and signed by the executive. So do you want the judiciary to begin to make its own laws and ignore the ones? And who are the people who have made the other ones? The bourgeoisie. And they make it for to a large extent, self-interest. And that's why they will come and put immunity for speaker to join the governor so that they won't be left out. They want speakers, some high-ranking legislative members to join their counterparts in the executive to be untouchables. So, and you can see in that situation, they have not included the top echelon of the judiciary. So you can see the paddy thing, they just want executive. So when all these laws are made, you make a law saying a governor will be taking 500 vehicles, live in a house of 70 billion, and all that. By the end of the day, why are you not treating drivers, those who leave their jobs, those who were cleaners? Nobody makes laws for them to take any relevant thing out of their work. Even the ones they are supposed to be paid, many of them keep going for it until they die on queue. So the society has been structured to cheat the majority of the people. And as long as laws are made to protect this interest, the judiciary will not do magic. Because
it's not Father Christmas.
Certainly.
Okay, let's look at the prosecution team in this trial. And with many evidence it's gathered, it presented to the judge in the course of the trial for years. And then, of course, putting in mind that the government in the past had lost some cases because of not being able to present enough evidence, to prosecute an accused person. So how easy or hard or important really is for the prosecution to gather enough evidence before going to court? Because it's obvious that public trial is totally different from the real trial. Basically,
you are in order. I think that's the way to go. And that's the way we have always canvassed. That the prosecution should do a thorough job. By the time they do a messy job, the result will show. Like I said, that Alexis Zion, who stood in for the prosecution, is a tested lawyer. And he did a lot to ensure that this man, because not everybody would have ensured that, done his best. So basically, the prosecution should learn to be painstaking. For instance, before you even arrest some people, and I think they did that, they did it in this one. They did a very good job, because these people perhaps were not on the scene, and they were eventually linked. So, but we need to have cameras. We need, so beyond what the prosecution will do, technology should come in. And it's only the executive that will help the prosecution. So this thing that once a prosecutor loses a case, we descend on them. They are trying. Prosecutors are trying. They are working within the limited challenges in the system. If you go outside this country, abroad, basically you have camera evidence, you have laboratories to confirm certain things. So basically here we keep on depending on confessional statement, as many of which come out of touch.
All right, Chukwuemeka is a lecturer at Nasarawa State University. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you.